And what do you know? It's time for the next lecture. So, in the last section, we were able to handle an error occurring during our geolocation requests. But it's not necessarily appropriate for us to just put the word error right in here, yeah? So, in this section, we're going to figure out how to handle the situation when you don't have an error and when you do have one. So, basically, there's three different combinations of latitude and error message that we could run into as the possibilities, right? So we can run into a situation where we have a latitude, but we do not have an error message. So in this case, we probably would want to show the user our latitude. Then the second case, we might not have the latitude, but we might have an error message. So this would occur in a case that a user denied our geolocation request. So if that's the case, then we might want to show the error and not show the latitude. And then the third case is, let's say that we might not have either the latitude or the error message. So in this case, what would occur is that our app is probably waiting for the API request. So if that's the case, then we might want to show something like loading to the user. And then when the user first uses our application, it's going to take about 2 or 3 seconds for something to load up. So during that time, we probably want to tell the user that they are waiting for something. So why don't we handle all three of these different scenarios right now? So in order to conditionally return some different JSX, all we have to do is put in a simple statement into this render method. Now, this is going to be the most simple way of doing this, but we are going to refactor it into a slightly more elegant way. So I'm going to delete everything inside the render method for right now, and I'm going to put in 3 different statements. First off, I'll say that if we have an error message and we do not have a latitude, then I want to return a div that contains my error message. So then in that case, I do want to show an error. And then next, if I do not have an error message and I have a latitude, then I want to return a div with the latitude. And then finally, for the third case down here, this would be the scenario in which I have absolutely no latitude and no message for the error. So in this case, I want to show that it is loading. Okay, so now I don't really need an if statement. I can just say, if we failed these 2 checks, then chances are we don't have a latitude or an error message. So I'm just going to simply return a div that says loading. Okay. So now this right here is conditional rendering. So we're returning different JSX depending on the state or the props of our components. So we're going to use conditional rendering quite a bit throughout this course, and this is the most simple way to go about it. So even in this application, once we understand how this block right here works, we're going to refactor it into something that looks a little nicer than what you see here. So I'm going to just flip back over to my browser. And I see that I've already got my latitude on here. So let's refresh the page, and I have latitude on my screen. So now let's test out the other 2 scenarios. So I'll just reset my location by setting it to ask default and then reload the page. And then in the background here, we don't have an error message or a latitude. So we're seeing that loading text. Perfect. But if I then allow, it is going to turn into a latitude. So now I'm going to try the other case. So I'll just do another ask default. and I will refresh. Okay, so now I'm going to block it this time. And now I see the error instead. And that wraps it up. So why don't we take another break here, and we'll come back for the next section.